Oh, hello again, everyone. Welcome back. Thanks for visiting once again. So this is a bit of an unusual video today in the sense that I'm just playing out a finished model I did some years ago, but it's in response to a question that was raised on another channel, which is Steve's Vintage Model Builds. He's a very nice Canadian guy I think he's got about 150, maybe 200 subscribers, and kind of deserves some more, to be honest with you, because he's very engaging, got a nice style about him, and he makes some good models. I think he's going to make an M41 Walker Bulldog in a little while, which is one of the kits that Sir James, good evening Sir James, over at To Boldly Goes Model Works has done and did a really very good job of. But on his channel he was talking about metal finishing of models, and so I mentioned on his channel when I commented on this that I built a Mustang and metal finished it. Excuse me. And look, if I bark at you once or twice on this film, it's because I've got a bit of a sore throat, and it's irritating when I talk, and what better excuse not to speak, actually. But there you are, you can't stop me, can you? However much you try, not to worry. So I thought I'd bring this out from behind the scenes, as it were, and let you have a look at it. Now, this was the first model I built after a gap of some 40 odd years, I suspect, and it's a 132 scale Tamiya P51D, as you can see. I mean, all of you will know this model. I made the usual mistakes on it and so on, but in terms of the metal finishing, I wanted to speak a little bit about this because I had a specific idea of the sort of finish I wanted on this, and on the internet you can see a number of videos. Kermit Weeks, I think, is one of them, who has a Mustang P51D, and all of these metal areas are really pretty highly polished. Now, that's not really a Second World War type finish, if I'm absolutely truthful with you. And I wanted to get a slightly worn, slightly shiny but slightly worn look to this. And at the time I did this model, I started off with rattle can to do some of this. So this paint finish here and this red finish here was all done with a rattle can and some masking, as was the back here. Now, what I found with the Tamiya rattle cans is they give very good coverage and they finish really well, but you have to be so careful with them, in the sense that if you press that little button too much, you end up flooding the surface of a model here and you obscure all this detail. So what I did with this, and I don't think I primed it, actually. That's how much of a noob I was back then, as it were. So this is not primed, and what I did was to spray this up with the Tamiya rattle can, and where I've gone in here a bit more than you would expect or want, it's gone a bit shiny, and out here on the wings where there's less exposure to the paint, it was a bit patchy. And I looked at this and thought, how can I deal with this? And as I say, I just got an airbrush, and I thought to myself, I know, I'll get some of this extreme bare metal aluminium. Now that's burnt metal, by the way, pale burnt metal, and I've got another one called jet exhaust, but I've still got some of the polished aluminium, and I thought, well, right, okay, let's try it with that and see what happens. So I ran over it with the airbrush, which was really good training, to be honest with you, in the sense that with an airbrush it's actually easier to overcoat than to undercoat unless you're careful. So I was very, very gently dusting this with paint, and I went along until I ended up with what you see now, which is not shiny but not dull either. So it reflects in the light, and gives some appearance, and I mean, the underside looks a bit different to the top side because, of course, as you will realise, the top side after 3 years has been weathered with a thin patina of dust, which is the best way of weathering models, I found. So what we've clued up with here is use of these two mediums, so an airbrush and a rattle can, We've not obscured any of the detailing here in terms of all of the rivet lines and the rivet marks are visible, and we've got a slight shine. And what I've then done over the top of that is to excuse me again, is to go over with a panel liner, just to light up these panel lines and to get them to look a little bit more deep, and then rubbed over the top of that with a Q-tip, you know, a cotton bud. That's what we call them over here. I know the Americans call them Q-tips. So hello to you across the pond, wherever you are. It'd be nice to see you, nice to hear from you. But so that's how I ended up with this, shall we say, slightly weathered look, which was what I was trying to achieve. And it doesn't take a great deal of skill, if I'm truthful with you, because at that stage, as you can imagine, I had no skill at all, and I was developing it. And some might argue, quite with perfect facility, that I still don't have any skill. But this is what I ended up with. But I felt that the mixture of the two finishes, the can and the airbrush, ended up with a nice finish on the paintwork here, to give it a more realistic, sort of slightly used look to it. And that was what I tried to achieve. Maybe it worked and maybe it didn't, but this was for Steve over at Steve's Vintage Model Builds, and I thought, well, maybe you would be interested in that, and this would be of some use to you. I know there are many more experienced people than me in terms of metal finishing, but I thought I would just do a quick video about this with due reference to the individual who started this all off when I commented on his video. So there you are. That's a P51D Tamiya Mustang that I made about three and a half years ago, I guess, something like that. And I've built a few since then, not Mustangs, but a few models anyway. Hopefully they're getting better. I'll let you guys be the judge, but look, thanks very much indeed for your time, and slightly unusually, as I say, no build bits and pieces to do with this one, and I hope you enjoyed looking at that. Take care for now. Bye.